Most people think avoiding manipulation is about being nicer, clearer, more honest. They believe that if they never lie, never cheat, never play games, life will reward them for being good. You already know that is not how the world works. You have lived long enough to see that the most loyal employee gets passed over, the most forgiving partner gets walked on, and the most available friend becomes everyone's emotional trash can. The world does not reward purity, it rewards power. And today, power means one thing, not being easy to use. This is not about becoming toxic. It is about refusing to be a toy in other people's hands. In business, people will flatter you to make you work more for less. In dating, some will create jealousy, guilt, or fake crises just to keep you orbiting them. In friendships, people who secretly envy you will sabotage your focus with drama and endless emergencies. You feel it. You feel when you are being emotionally pulled like a puppet. What you have never been given is a complete system for cutting the strings. Machiavelli understood something most self-help books still refuse to admit. Human nature is not neutral. He wrote that men are ungrateful, fickle, liars, and deceivers, not to make you hate people, but to make you stop being surprised by them. When you stop being surprised by human nature, you stop being easy to manipulate. What you are going to build across this entire journey is a set of 21 hidden power defenses that make you strategically unexploitable. Not hard, not bitter, not paranoid. Unexploitable. Think about the patterns you have seen. You give more information than anyone asked for, and it gets used against you in negotiations. You reply instantly to every message, and people start to assume your time has no value. You over-explain your decisions, and suddenly, everyone thinks they have the right to vote on your life. Those are not random moments. They are open doors. Manipulators do not need to be geniuses. They just need you to leave the door open long enough. Here is the first truth you must accept if you want to become unplayable. Manipulation is not rare. It is the default strategy of people who are too weak, too lazy, or too afraid to get what they want through direct effort. Some do it consciously and coldly. Others do it unconsciously because they grew up learning that guilt, tears, tantrums, passive aggression, or calculated silence are faster than honest requests. When Machiavelli said, "He who deceives will always find those who allow themselves to be deceived," he was describing a law. Manipulators exist because there is always a supply of people who do not know how to defend themselves. You are here to stop being part of that supply. To do that, you need a map of modern manipulation. In Machiavelli's time, power played out in courts, councils, and battlefields. Today, it plays out in boardrooms, on dating apps, in group chats, contract clauses, Instagram stories, and performance review meetings. Before, it was about swords and alliances. Now it is about attention, image, access, and emotional leverage. People do not just manipulate what you do. They manipulate what you think is normal. Look at your life. In business, manipulation shows up as fake urgency, vague promises, shifting expectations, and family talk used to justify exploitation. In dating, it shows up as hot and cold behavior, love bombing followed by withdrawal, silent treatments, triangulation, and constant tests to see how far you will bend. In friendships, it shows up as guilt trips, keeping score, constant one-sided venting, and subtle digs at your ambitions whenever you try to level up. If you do not understand these patterns, you will keep thinking each situation is unique. If you do understand them, everything starts to look like the same script with different actors. The transformation you are going to make is from reactive to strategic. A reactive man responds to whatever is thrown at him. He explains, justifies, defends, overshares, and tries to prove he is good. A strategic man understands what Machiavelli meant when he said, "The wise man does at once what the fool does at last." The wise man does not wait to get hurt 3 times before he sharpens his awareness. He studies power early. He builds his defenses before he is desperate. He refuses to play on a field where he has no rules. To build those defenses, you have to change how you see yourself. Right now, manipulators see you as an open system. Your time, your attention, your sympathy, your secrets, your schedule, your emotional stability are all available on demand. You might say you have boundaries, but your behavior tells a different story. You answer calls from people who never respect your time. You stay in conversations that drain you. You let people vent for hours, even when they never take action on anything. You treat your energy like a public resource instead of a private reserve. This entire framework is going to turn you into a fortress. Not a cold stone wall that isolates you from life, but a fortified city that controls its gates. Inside, there is warmth, loyalty, generosity, and love. Outside, there is evaluation, screening, and selective access. Machiavelli wrote that a prince must learn how not to be good, and to use this knowledge or not use it according to necessity. Applied to you, that means you must learn how to stop being automatically available, automatically open, automatically trusting, not because you want to hurt people, but because you are done letting weak people use you as their strategy. Across the next parts, we will go through 21 hidden defenses. These are not tricks. They are ways of controlling your information, your tempo, your emotional exposure, your level of scarcity, your alliances, and your exits. Some defenses start inside your mind. The way you interpret other people's behavior, the questions you ask yourself, the stories you no longer believe. Other defenses are external, how you respond to guilt, how you handle urgent demands, how you phrase your boundaries, how you control the frame in a negotiation, how you walk away without theatrics. Before we dive into the specific defenses, you need to accept a second truth. If you want to be unexploitable, you must give up the fantasy that everyone around you is playing fair. Most people are not studying Machiavelli, but they are still using the instinctive version of his advice. They exaggerate their weakness to pull out your strength. They pretend confusion to make you take responsibility. They dangle attention or affection to see how far you will chase. None of this makes them pure evil. It just makes them human. Your job is not to fix their nature. Your job is to master yours. Ask yourself a few hard questions. Where in your life do you keep giving second chances to people who have shown you a clear pattern? Where do you feel a little sick when a certain name pops up on your phone? Where do you leave conversations feeling smaller, more doubtful, more exhausted than before? Those are not random discomforts. They are early warnings that your defenses are weak in that area. That is exactly where this framework will hit first. By the time you have absorbed all 21 defenses, 3 things will be true. First, manipulators will find you boring to target because nothing they do will get the emotional reaction they want. Second, people of integrity will feel strangely safer around you because your boundaries signal that you are not secretly using them either. Third, you will start to feel a calm distance between you and other people's chaos. Their mood will stop being your weather. This is not about becoming untouchable. It is about becoming unplayable. There is a big difference. Untouchable people isolate themselves and die lonely, paranoid, and bitter. Unplayable people stay in the game, but they choose their moves, their battles, and their alliances with surgical clarity. They can love, give, invest, and commit because they trust their own defenses. That is the state you are moving toward. Now you stand at the gate. You understand that manipulation is not rare, that human nature is not neutral, and that your life up to this point has trained other people on how easy or how difficult it is to use you. That training ends here. You are about to start constructing your first hidden power defense, and it begins with the one thing every manipulator reaches for first: your information. If your life is a fortress, the first thing a manipulator tests is not your walls, but your gate. That gate is your information. What you think, what you feel, what you want, what you fear, what you regret, what you are ashamed of. Most people leave that gate wide open, especially when they want approval. They confuse transparency with strength. They pour out their life story to bosses, dates, and new friends, then act surprised when the exact details they shared become tools used against them later. Machiavelli would not be surprised. He warned that everyone sees what you appear to be. Few know what you really are. Your first defense is to make sure that gap exists on purpose. Number one, the opaque core. You need a part of you that is never on the table, not because you are fake, but because you are not for sale. The opaque core means you stop believing that people must fully understand you in order to treat you well. That is a child's fantasy. Adults respect what they cannot completely access. When you let everyone see your fears, your financial situation, your insecurities, your traumas, your long-term goals, you hand them a menu of pressure points. In business, that might look like revealing how desperate you are for a promotion, which makes it easy to overload you with work in exchange for vague promises. In dating, it looks like revealing your biggest fear is being abandoned, which makes it very easy for someone to control you with distance. In friendships, it looks like confessing your guilt patterns, which makes it easy for people to manipulate you with blame. An opaque core does not mean you turn into a stone. It means you choose who gets depth over time, with proof, not with words. Machiavelli said that a wise man ought always to follow the paths beaten by great men, and to imitate those who have been supreme. The great men he studied were never open books. They were legible enough to be understood in public, but their motives, their plans, their thresholds were never fully visible. You must adopt the same principle. People can know your values without knowing your pressure points. They can know your goals without knowing your deadlines. They can know your story without having access to your unedited wounds. Number two, calibrated disclosure. Manipulators love fast disclosure. They push intimacy early. They ask intense questions quickly. They share dramatic stories to get you to share yours. They act like you are already on the same side, part of the same team, victims of the same enemies. They know most people feel rude if they do not reciprocate that vulnerability. That is how they get the map. Calibrated disclosure means you reverse that default. You stop giving people more access than their track record deserves. You reveal in proportion to how they handle lesser information. Think about a new boss. Instead of telling them every ambition you have and every weakness you fear, you give them a clear, professional picture of what you can do now. Then you watch. Do they respect your time and effort? Do they keep their word? Do they communicate directly? Only after consistent proof do you reveal more about your long-term plans. The same applies in dating. Instead of unloading your entire history in the first few weeks because it feels right, you share slowly and see whether they weaponize, dismiss, or respect what you say. If someone uses your honesty to provoke jealousy, trigger insecurity, or test your tolerance for disrespect, that is your signal to close the gate, not open it further. Calibrated disclosure also changes how you respond to probing questions. You stop answering from a place of fear and start answering from a place of choice. When someone you barely know asks, "How much do you make?" or "Why did your last relationship really end?" you do not owe them full documentary detail. You can answer at the level of trust they have earned. "I am comfortable with what I make for where I am, and I am focused on increasing it. We had different long-term visions. I learned a lot and I am moving forward." Short, clean answers. No extra rope for anyone to tie around your neck. Number three, question first intelligence. Most people reveal too much because they are so busy presenting themselves that they forget to observe. They rush to fill silence with explanation, justification, and stories. Manipulators love that. They know that the more someone talks, the more tells they expose. Machiavelli observed that the first method for estimating the intelligence of a ruler is to look at the men he has around him. You can apply a similar logic in your life. The first method for estimating the safety of a person is to listen to the questions they ask. Question first. Intelligence means that before you give any serious information, you start gathering it. You become genuinely curious about how people think, how they talk about others, what they admire, what they tolerate. You ask open questions and then you shut up. You watch for patterns, not performances. In business, you might ask a potential partner what they do when a deal goes wrong. Do they take responsibility or do they always blame others? In dating, you might ask how they describe their exes. Are they always the hero and everyone else the villain? In friendships, you listen to how they react when you mention your goals. Do they get excited and supportive, or do they minimize, joke, or change the subject? The point of question-first intelligence is simple. You stop trying to impress and start trying to understand. When you understand, you no longer need to over-explain yourself. You can give the minimum information required for someone to work with you, be with you, or support you, and no more. The rest is held in reserve until they prove they know what to do with it. This alone will repel a large percentage of manipulators because they are looking for fast, easy targets who hand over the map in the first few conversations. Notice what these first three defenses have in common. They shift you from being a broadcast tower to being a controlled channel. You no longer see honesty as pouring everything out. You see it as speaking truth at the right depth to the right person at the right time. You no longer see questions as demands. You see them as opportunities to test the person asking. You no longer see yourself as an open book. You see yourself as a library with access levels. Machiavelli's world was full of spies, informants, and double agents, yet he still believed a prince could survive if he understood that appearances are tools, not reflections of the whole truth. You are applying the same principle to modern life. As you start using information control, something interesting will happen. The people who benefited from your oversharing will feel you pulling away, and they will call it cold or distant. They will say, "You have changed." They are right. You have changed from unguarded to strategic. On the other hand, people who value mutual respect will feel more at ease. Clear boundaries and controlled disclosure actually make relationships safer because everyone knows the rules. There is less chaos, less drama, fewer uncontrolled emotional spills. You may feel some internal resistance to this. A part of you might whisper, "But what if they think I am hiding something?" Here is the truth. You are hiding something. You are hiding your emotional levers, your negotiable standards, your private doubts, your most painful memories from people who have not earned them. That is not deceit, that is wisdom. The man who throws his entire treasure chest into the street and then complains about thieves is not virtuous. He is foolish. You have now closed the first gate. Your information is no longer a free buffet. From this point forward, every time someone wants to know more about you, they will have to pay with time, consistency, honesty, and alignment. That alone will cut the number of manipulators in your life. But control of information is only half of the early game. There is another dimension manipulators exploit relentlessly, especially in modern life. And it is the one that most ambitious men ignore until it burns them: the control of tempo. In the next part, you are going to see how power over timing, speed, and pacing can either protect you or expose you, and how Machiavelli's cold understanding of urgency and delay applies perfectly to your messages, your decisions, and your emotional reactions today. Once you start guarding your information, manipulators do not just give up. They shift tactics. If they cannot control what you reveal, they will try to control when you react. This is the second major battlefield: tempo. Modern manipulation lives and dies on speed. Fast texts, fast opportunities, fast crises, fast emotional swings. They want you rushing, not reflecting. Because a rushed man is an obedient man. Machiavelli understood timing like few others. He wrote that fortune is like a river that floods violently, but wise men build dams and dikes in quiet times. The average person waits until the water is already pouring into their house before they think about structure. You are not going to live like that anymore. You are going to build your defenses in your calendar, your inbox, your messages, and your emotional responses so that other people's urgency stops being your prison. Number 4, tempo sovereignty. Tempo sovereignty means you own your response time. You stop letting other people's clocks dictate your decisions. Think about how easily your tempo gets hijacked. A client sends an email marked urgent, and suddenly your entire day gets rearranged. Someone you are dating pulls away for 2 days, then sends one intense message, and you are right back, replying in seconds. A friend who never respects your schedule calls you in the middle of deep work, and you pick up because you feel guilty. In each of those moments, the manipulator is not just controlling your actions, they are controlling your tempo. Taking back tempo sovereignty starts with a simple internal law. You are never obliged to respond at the speed someone else prefers. You respond at the speed that keeps you clear, powerful, and calm. In business, that means you stop answering every message the moment it appears. You batch your responses, you prioritize based on your goals, not someone else's anxiety. In dating, it means you stop treating your phone like a leash. You can be engaged without being instantly available. In friendships, it means that "I am busy, I will call you later" becomes a normal, calm phrase, not a shameful confession. Here is the psychological shift. When you respond instantly to everything, people unconsciously rank you below themselves. Your time appears cheaper than theirs. Your boundaries look negotiable. Manipulators feel this and push harder. When you slow your tempo, you send a different signal. You are not rude, but you are not reactive. Machiavelli said that men judge more by the eye than the hand. Because everyone can see, few can touch. People judge your power by what they can observe. If you always seem rushed, they assume you are being led. If you move with your own rhythm, they assume you are leading something bigger than the moment. Number 5, the strategic pause. This defense is the difference between a man who explodes, apologizes and gets played again, and a man who remains unplayable in heated situations. Manipulators love emotional speed. They provoke you and watch your face. They drop a shocking statement and wait for you to react. They say, "We need an answer right now." Not because they actually do, but because it stops you from thinking. The strategic pause is your refusal to let the first emotional wave decide your behavior. Practically, this means you build a habit. When something hits your emotions hard, you do not answer immediately. You pause. You take a walk, you write your raw reaction in a private note instead of a message thread. You sleep on it, if possible. You reread the message the next morning. You ask yourself, what is the actual decision here, and what is just noise? In arguments, instead of snapping back with the most cutting thing you can think of, you say, "I hear what you're saying. I'm going to think about this and respond later." That sentence alone terrifies manipulators because it aborts their favorite tactic, trapping you inside a moment. The strategic pause protects you in negotiations as well. Someone might say, "This deal is only available if you sign today." Most people hear that and feel their chest tighten. They fear missing out, they rush. A Machiavellian mind hears something different. They hear, "I'm trying to keep you from checking the details." Your answer becomes, "If this is only valid under pressure, it is not for me." You are willing to lose fake opportunities in order to protect your long-term position. Remember, Machiavelli valued those who could foresee misfortunes from afar and guard against them. The strategic pause is that foresight in action. Number 6, the slow yes, fast no. Most men live the opposite, a fast yes and a slow no. They say yes to favors, projects, dates, collaborations, and responsibilities in order to be liked, then spend weeks or months trying to back out gracefully. Manipulators thrive on this. They know if they put you on the spot, your mouth will say yes, while your mind is still confused. The slow yes reverses that instinct. You do not commit to anything meaningful without space to think. You normalize saying, "Let me look at my schedule and get back to you," or "Let me consider it and I will give you a clear answer." You earn the right to thoughtful decisions. The fast no is your shield against guilt-based manipulation. It means that when something is clearly misaligned with your priorities, your values, or your current capacity, you do not drag out the answer. You do not write long explanations, justifications, or apologies. You say, "No, I cannot do that," or "That will not work for me." Short, calm, decisive. At first, people used to your people-pleasing will resist. They will try to negotiate, escalate, or guilt trip. If you stay firm, a new pattern forms. The people who truly respect you adjust. The ones who only valued you as a tool drift away. This slow yes, fast no pattern also changes your inner life. You stop promising yourself 20 new habits because you watched a motivational clip, then hating yourself when you fail. You promise less, and you keep what you promise. That consistency is power. Machiavelli observed that a ruler's word matters only when it is backed by strength and necessity. Your word begins to feel strong because you are no longer throwing it around to manage other people's emotions. Number 7, clock control in communication. Modern manipulators use technology as their battlefield. Read receipts, message streaks, social media status, and posting times all become tools to pull you into reactive mode. Someone leaves your message on scene for hours to make you chase. Another person floods you with texts, then goes silent when you reply, forcing you to sit in anxiety. Someone watches your stories, but does not respond to your direct questions, training you to interpret every small action as a major signal. Clock control means you refuse to play that game. You control when you open messages. You control which platforms you respond on. You control how much emotional meaning you assign to digital patterns. Instead of obsessing over, why did she reply in 3 minutes yesterday and 30 minutes today? You ask a better question. Is this overall pattern respectful, or is it erratic and manipulative? You zoom out. You look at weeks, not minutes. In business, you treat your inbox like a tool, not an altar. In dating, you remember that adults have lives and that synchronized addiction to phones is not intimacy. In friendships, you stop believing that immediate replies equal love and slightly delayed replies equal betrayal. When you own the clock, something subtle but powerful happens. Manipulative people lose their favorite toys. They cannot jerk your emotions around by controlling response times because you are not measuring your worth in minutes on a screen. They cannot trap you in urgency because you know that real opportunities can withstand reasonable questions and delays. They cannot force you into reactive arguments because you are willing to walk away for an hour a day or longer until your mind is clear. Combine these tempo defenses with your earlier information control and your profile changes. You are no longer the guy who overshares and overreacts. You become hard to read and hard to rush. Machiavelli would have recognized this as the beginning of true prudence. Not paranoia, but measured action. He knew that those who cannot govern their own pace will be governed by others. You might feel a tension rising now. If you control your information and your tempo, what happens next? How do manipulators adapt? They shift from pushing for speed to probing your deeper emotional levers, especially those tied to scarcity, fear of loss, and social belonging. If they cannot rush you, they will try to make you feel that you are about to lose something irreplaceable. In the next part, you will build the defenses around scarcity, value, and presence that make you immune to now or never emotional games in business, dating, and friendship. You will see how to become rare without becoming fake, and how to use controlled presence as armor instead of chasing your way into traps. By now, your shape is already changing. You are harder to read and harder to rush. That alone makes you more difficult to use. But manipulators are persistent. When they realize they cannot pull information out of you or whip you into reacting on command, they reach for a deeper lever: scarcity. They try to mess with your sense of value. They want you to feel that they are rare and you are replaceable, that their attention is gold and yours is dust, that if you do not comply, you will lose something you cannot get anywhere else. Machiavelli understood that people will endure almost anything if they think they are dependent. He wrote that men are driven more by the fear of loss than by the hope of gain. Weak people weaponize that fear against you. They will threaten to withdraw love, opportunity, status, or belonging unless you bend. Your defense is to reverse where scarcity lives. The powerful are never scarce in options. They are scarce in access. Number 8, controlled availability. Controlled availability is not pretending to be busy. is actually living a life full enough that your time cannot be bought cheaply. Most men leak availability everywhere. They answer every call, show up to every last-minute plan, adjust their schedule around people who never plan ahead. That constant availability trains others to believe two things. First, that you have nothing significant going on. Second, that they can interrupt your path anytime they want. Controlled availability starts with your calendar and your priorities, not your phone. You decide when you are reachable, for how long, and through which channels. In business, that might mean you have deep work blocks where you are genuinely not available, and you do not apologize for that. In dating, it means you have a real life that does not get suspended every time someone texts you. In friendships, it means you are willing to say, "Tonight I am focused on my work and my rest. Let us plan another day without guilt." Manipulators will test this. They will call you selfish. They will say you are acting different. What they really mean is that they no longer own your time by default. Machiavelli would not have been disturbed by their noise. He believed that a ruler must sometimes incur the charge of meanness in order to preserve his state. You are doing the same. You are willing to be called distant in order to protect the structure of your life. Number 9, the non-needy frame. Scarcity games only work on someone who believes that what they are chasing is the only source of what they need. Manipulators sell you the illusion that they are the only chance you have at love, success, status, or belonging. The non-needy frame destroys that illusion internally before you confront it externally. It is the mindset that says, "You are not my only door. You are just one door. If it shuts, I will find or build another." This is not arrogance. It is reality. There are dozens of jobs, projects, clients, partners, and social circles that could align with you. The problem is not the world's lack of options. The problem is your attachment to specific faces. When a boss hints that people like you do not get many chances like this, or a partner implies no one else will tolerate you, or a friend frames their group as the only place you belong, they are counting on your starvation mindset. The non-needy frame cuts through it. Practically, you build this frame by investing in yourself first. You improve your skills so no job feels like the last possible offer. You cultivate your health and presence so no relationship feels like your only shot at connection. You develop inner solitude so no friend group feels like the only buffer against loneliness. Machiavelli wrote that a wise man relies on what depends on him, not on what depends on others. You embody that by placing your security in your ability to adapt, not in anyone's approval. Now, before we go deeper, I want you to lock this into your mind and drop it in the comments. I cannot be played. I study power before pleasure. That sentence is not just a phrase. It is a line in the sand. It means you no longer chase people because they make you feel good for a moment. You study their patterns before you give them power over your emotions. You evaluate their character before you make them central to your life. Pleasure comes second. Power, meaning your ability to direct your life, comes first. Number 10, presence as a luxury item. Manipulators treat their presence like a luxury and yours like tap water. They come and go unpredictably, knowing that inconsistency is addictive to insecure minds. You start wondering, will they call today? Will they show up? Will they approve? Your nervous system gets hooked on their cycles. The defense is not to chase their presence. It is to make your own presence something you do not hand out cheaply. Presence as a luxury item means that when you show up somewhere, you are fully there. You bring focus, energy, attention, and value. You are not half scrolling your phone, half listening. You are not lukewarm. People feel the difference. Someone who is fully present is rare. By being that way, you turn your time into something memorable and respected. But you also keep it selective. Not everyone gets that version of you. Some interactions deserve only the basic, polite version. Others earn your full depth. In dating, this might look like refusing to be a backup plan. If someone only calls you at random times when their other options fall through, you pull away. They do not lose access to a desperate fallback. They lose access to a focused, grounded, engaged presence. In business, it might look like declining meetings that have no clear purpose. In friendship, it might look like reducing time with people who only want entertainment and increasing time with people who want mutual growth. Again, Machiavelli would recognize this. He knew that men esteem most what is hardest to win. When your focused presence is not automatic, it becomes respected. Number 11, engineered absence. Sometimes the most powerful move is not to explain, negotiate, or argue. It is to step back. Engineered absence is the deliberate use of distance to reset dynamics that have become disrespectful or manipulative. This is not silent treatment as punishment. It is strategic space to break unhealthy patterns. Manipulators rely on your fear of losing them. When you are willing to walk away calmly, you flip the script. Picture a work situation where someone constantly dumps last-minute tasks on you, expecting you to save the day. You have tried to talk about it. Nothing changes. Engineered absence might mean you stop volunteering as the hero. You leave on time. You let the consequences fall. Suddenly their behavior hurts them, not you. In dating, if someone plays hot and cold games, you do not respond with emotional essays. You quietly match their level of investment, and then, if the pattern continues, you withdraw your presence entirely. No anger, no speeches. Just absence. Engineered absence teaches people the real cost of their behavior. It forces them to confront the reality that you are not guaranteed in their life. Machiavelli wrote that injuries should be inflicted all at once, so that they are felt clearly. Your absence is not an injury, but it is a clear signal. It says, this is the consequence. I'm no longer available to be used in this way. Those who value you will adjust. Those who only valued your compliance will replace you with another target, which is a blessing in disguise. When you put these scarcity and presence defenses together, you become less and less compatible with manipulation. Controlled availability stops people from assuming they can interrupt your life at will. The non-needy frame dissolves their attempts to trap you with fear of loss. Presence as a luxury item makes your time more valuable the less you waste it. Engineered absence recalibrates relationships that have grown entitled. You may notice something else as this shift takes hold. Your standards rise quietly. The offers you accept, the conversations you stay in, the circles you move through start to change. You stop chasing people who make you prove your worth over and over. Instead, you gravitate toward environments where respect is the baseline. That is not an accident. Power defenses do not just repel manipulators. They attract those who have no interest in playing games. But there is a remaining vulnerability. Even with strong information control, tempo sovereignty, and scarcity defenses, manipulative people can still slip past your radar if you cannot read their tells. They will present as charming, generous, even selfless in the beginning. Machiavelli warned that men judge in general more by the eye than by the hand. For everyone can see, but few can feel. You cannot afford to be blinded by what looks good on the surface. In the next part, you will learn the specific tells of predatory people, how they talk, how they handle small boundaries, how they respond to your strength. Once you know these signs, you will be able to filter manipulators early before they ever get close enough to require your heavier defenses. You can only defend yourself against what you can see. The danger with manipulators is that they rarely walk in wearing a mask labeled predator. They arrive as charm, as help, as chemistry, as opportunity. They study you. They mirror you. They say the right things early. If you only judge by first impressions, you will keep inviting the same pattern into your life with different faces. Machiavelli warned that men judge more by the eye than the hand, because everyone can see, but few can feel. Your advantage comes when you start feeling the pattern underneath the performance. This is where many good men fail. They think that spotting manipulators requires some mystical intuition, so they ignore their own discomfort. They rationalize obvious warning signs because the person makes them feel special, desired, or needed. You might hear yourself saying, "Yeah, that was weird." But they were probably just stressed, or that comment hurt. But they are usually nice, or they love me, so they must mean well. You are not being loyal in those moments. You are being easy to use. It is time to upgrade your reading of people. Number 12, boundary micro-tests. Manipulators do not usually start with big violations. They start small. They poke the edges of your comfort and watch what happens. They show up late just a few minutes to see if you say anything. They borrow a little money just this once and pay it back slowly, checking whether you get firm. They make a slightly disrespectful joke about you in public, then call you sensitive if you react. Every tiny move has one purpose: to map out how much disrespect you will tolerate. You know you are facing boundary micro-tests when your body stiffens, but your mouth smiles. You feel a small internal no, but you override it to keep the peace. You say it is fine even though it is not. That right there is the data a predator is waiting for. Machiavelli wrote that the first fault is tolerated, the second is noticed, the third is punished. A manipulator flips that. If the first fault is tolerated, they escalate. Your defense is not to become hyper-reactive. It is to stop coating over the first fault. You calmly name it. You are late. Please be on time next time. No, I do not lend money. I do not like jokes like that about me. If their response is sincere respect, good. If their response is defensiveness, mockery, or emotional blackmail, you have seen the true nature early. Number 13, the story-action gap. Predatory people have impressive stories about themselves. They talk about how loyal they are, how much they value honesty, how they always show up, how they are different from everyone who hurt you in the past. They create a narrative to position themselves as the answer to your wounds. It feels comforting. You want to believe it. The trap is that you judge them by their stories instead of their actions. Machiavelli noted that the promise given was a necessity of the past. The word broken is a necessity of the present. Manipulators promise as a tactic, not as a commitment. You spot a story-action gap by quietly tracking what they do over time, especially in small, unglamorous situations. Someone who claims they hate drama but always seems to be in conflict with different people is telling you who they are. Someone who says they are all about communication but shuts down or stonewalls when you bring up an issue is telling you who they are. Someone who calls themselves a giver but only shows up when there is attention or benefit is telling you who they are. The defense is very simple and very rare. You decide once and for all that actions outweigh words. You believe patterns over promises. You do not argue with their story. You observe their life. Number 14, reaction to your strength. A manipulator's friendliness is often a reward for your weakness. As long as you are pliable, agreeable, and eager to please, they can play nice. The moment you show strength, they reveal their actual attitude toward you. This is one of the cleanest tells you can use. When you set a boundary, do they respect it or punish you? When you say no, do they adjust or escalate? When you win, do they celebrate you or subtly undercut you? When you pull back to focus on your goals, do they support you or create drama to pull you back? Machiavelli understood that those who resent your strength will injure you when they can. He wrote that men injure either from fear or hatred. If someone cannot tolerate your assertiveness, your growth, or your independence, they will eventually harm your position. Modern manipulators often cloak this in concern. You announce a new project, and they say, "Are you sure you can handle that?" You set a boundary and they reply, "Wow, you have changed. You used to be so chill." You choose to focus on your work instead of going out, and they sigh, "You are boring now." They frame your discipline as a flaw because your strength threatens their control. There is another category of tells that reveals a predatory nature. How they talk about people who are not in the room. Listen to their language. Do they constantly describe themselves as the victim of every story? Is everyone else crazy, toxic, narcissistic, ungrateful, or evil? If in their narratives they are always the saint and others are always the villain, expect to one day become the villain in their story when you no longer serve their interests. Machiavelli advised rulers to pay attention not only to what people say to them, but what those people say about others. You can do the same. A person's gossip is a preview of how they will eventually talk about you. Now consider how they handle your no in low-stakes scenarios. You decline a small request. You ask for a different time. You say you are not comfortable with something minor. Healthy people might be surprised, but they adjust. Manipulative people often respond with emotional distortion. They may sulk, stonewall, raise their voice, or flip the script into an attack on your character. You are so selfish. You never do anything for me. I guess I cannot count on you. Everyone else would do it. These are not genuine expressions of hurt. They are tools. They are designed to train you that saying no is dangerous because it leads to rejection. There is one more powerful tell that Machiavelli would recognize instantly: their relationship with power in general. Watch how they treat people who cannot benefit them. Are they rude to waiters, dismissive to juniors, cruel to exes once they have moved on? Do they only show their best behavior upward toward those with status while punching down at those who are vulnerable? He wrote that anyone who becomes the cause of another's greatness is himself ruined, meaning that empowering the wrong person can destroy you. You avoid this fate by paying attention to how someone uses the power they already have, however small it is. Your growing defenses give you a crucial advantage here. Because you no longer overshare, rush to respond, or chase scarce attention, you can afford to watch. You can let someone reveal themselves over weeks and months without being overly entangled. The old you might have ignored early discomfort because you had already given too much. The new you holds back enough that walking away is always an option. This makes your judgment clearer. You are not deciding under emotional debt. You might ask, what if I misjudge someone and push away a good person by being too guarded? That is a fair concern. Here is the nuance. Good people are not destroyed by reasonable boundaries. They are clarified. When you say no, a healthy person may be surprised, but if they care about you, they will adapt. When you slow down a relationship to see if the story matches the actions, a healthy person may be curious, but if they are real, they will keep showing up in consistent ways. It is the manipulator whose mask starts to crack under the weight of your standards. As you sharpen your ability to read these tells, you become less reactive and more selective. You stop needing every new person to be the one who saves you in business, love, or friendship. You understand what Machiavelli meant when he suggested that a wise man must assume the nature of both the fox and the lion. For the lion cannot protect himself from traps, and the fox cannot defend himself from wolves. Your awareness of traps is your fox. Your boundaries and presence are your lion. You need both. Now that you can see predators more clearly, the next question becomes, how do you respond when you are already entangled? What do you do when manipulation is not theoretical, but present in your daily life? How do you counterattack without turning your life into constant conflict and drama? A powerful man does not shout, threaten, or perform revenge. He adjusts the frame, the consequences, and the structure, so that manipulators lose access while his own reputation remains intact. In the next part, you will learn how to counter manipulation without theatrics. You will see how to shift from defending yourself emotionally to defending your position strategically, how to respond in a way that drains a manipulator's leverage, and how to exit situations cleanly when the game is too rigged to fix. Seeing manipulation is one thing. Escaping it without burning your life down is another. Most men swing between two weak extremes. On one side, they endure everything in silence until they snap. On the other side, they explode in rage, send long paragraphs, argue for hours, then end up apologizing and staying in the same trap. Both paths keep you predictable. Both paths keep you playable. A powerful man does something different. He does not fight inside the emotional arena a manipulator has built. He moves the battle to a ground they hate: structure, consequences, and access. Machiavelli wrote that a prince must learn how not to be good and use this knowledge according to necessity. For you, that means learning how to stop being nice in ways that get you used, and start being precise in ways that make manipulation unprofitable. Number 15, frame replacement. Manipulators win by controlling the frame. The frame is the invisible story about what is happening and what it means. In their frame, you are guilty for having needs. You are selfish for setting boundaries. You are ungrateful for resisting exploitation. They push that frame through phrases like, "After everything I've done for you, you are overreacting," or "If you really cared, you would." If you accept their frame, you will spend all your energy defending yourself instead of changing anything. Frame replacement means you refuse to argue inside their story. You calmly assert your own. For example, they say, "You never support me. You are so cold now that you are busy." The old you might argue, recount all the times you were there, try to prove your love. The new you replaces the frame. Support does not mean saying yes to everything. "I am still here. I'm just not available on demand." You are not apologizing for having a life. In business, when a boss says, "We are like a family here, everyone sacrifices," you replace the frame. "I give my best during work hours. If you need a different role, we can discuss that." You move from emotional blackmail to clear terms. This is not about winning arguments. It is about refusing to let their definitions become your reality. Machiavelli noted that the great majority of mankind are satisfied with appearances. Manipulators want the appearance of you being the problem. Frame replacement exposes the deeper truth. The issue is their entitlement, not your boundary. You do this without shouting, without name-calling, without long monologues. 1 or 2 clean sentences are enough to shift the ground. Number 16, consequences over confrontation. Weak men live in endless confrontation and 0 consequences. They complain, explain, and threaten change, but nothing structural ever shifts. Manipulators learn quickly that your words are air. They can hurt you, apologize, cry, promise, repeat, and you will still be there. Your real counterattack is not another speech. It is a consequence they cannot talk their way around. Consequences do not have to be dramatic to be powerful. In business, a colleague keeps dumping work on you at the last minute. You have told them it is a problem. Nothing changes. The confrontation is over. Now comes the consequence. You stop accepting tasks that break the agreed process. You copy their manager on emails that show the pattern. You document, you redirect, you enforce. No yelling. Just a new reality where their behavior brings discomfort to them, not to you. In dating, someone keeps flirting with others in front of you after you have clearly stated it is disrespectful. You do not start another 3-hour argument. You reduce contact. You stop making plans. Eventually, you end the relationship if the pattern continues. Your decision is the consequence. In friendships, a person only calls when they need something, never to give. You have noticed it. You feel drained. The consequence might be that you stop picking up every time. You answer later, with less availability, and you invest more energy into relationships that are mutual. You do not announce this like a punishment. You simply change your allocation. Machiavelli wrote that men forget more easily the death of their father than the loss of their patrimony. What people remember most is not how you felt. It is how their access to your resources changed. The psychology here is simple. Manipulators are addicted to cheap power. When their usual tactics stop working and start costing them, they either adapt or leave. Both outcomes serve you. You did not scream. You did not smear. You just aligned reality with your standards. That is counterattack without drama. Number 17, non-escalation judo. Manipulators are emotional arsonists. They light fires and then judge you for living in smoke. They push you, provoke you, and then use your reaction as evidence against you. See, you are crazy. You are aggressive. You are unstable. If you fight them in the way they want, you give them the very ammunition they came for. Non-escalation judo means you never give them the dramatic scene they are trying to engineer. Practically, this looks like lowering, not raising your emotional volume when things get heated. They yell, you stay calm. They accuse. You respond with short, clear statements. They bring up 5 issues at once. You answer the one that actually matters and ignore the bait. You might say, I am not going to shout. If we cannot talk calmly, I will continue this another time. Then you follow through. You walk away if they keep pushing, not as a punishment, but as a policy. There is a powerful Machiavellian logic under this. He wrote that the one who adapts his policy to the times prospers. The times in a manipulative moment are chaotic. Everything is designed to drag you down into raw emotion. The adaptation that prospers is to step outside the script completely. A screaming match is the old script. A calm statement and exit is the new script. They may call you cold. They may accuse you of stonewalling. You know the difference. You are not refusing to communicate. You are refusing to perform. Non-escalation judo also protects your reputation. Remember, your life does not happen in a vacuum. In workplaces, families, and social circles, stories travel. Manipulators are often skilled at playing the wounded victim in front of others. If you have a history of explosive reactions, it becomes easier for them to paint you as the problem. When your pattern is calm, consistent, and measured, their narrative clashes with what others see. Over time, that gap exposes them. Notice what all three of these defenses have in common. Frame replacement keeps you from fighting on their battlefield. Consequences over confrontation move you out of endless arguments into structural change. Non-escalation judo denies manipulators their favorite drug, which is your emotional chaos. You are not trying to make them understand your pain. You are making their usual tactics unprofitable. You might wonder, isn't this cold? Shouldn't I try to fix people? That is the old training speaking. Machiavelli would remind you that a ruler must not mind incurring the charge of cruelty for the purpose of keeping his subjects united and faithful. Translated to your life, it means you must be willing to appear harsh in the short term in order to protect your sanity and long-term stability. You are not obligated to be anyone's rehabilitation program. Your first duty is to govern your own state, which is your mind, your time, and your circle. There are situations, of course, where no counterattack is worth the entanglement. If you are dealing with someone highly unstable, vindictive, or in a position where they can seriously damage your livelihood, the most powerful move may be calculated withdrawal combined with protection. That could mean documenting everything at work and planning an exit on your terms. It could mean quietly separating finances and preparing legally in a relationship that has crossed into abuse. Never attempt to win by force what can be won by deception, Machiavelli wrote. In your context, that means you do not need dramatic blow-ups. You need quiet strategy. As you practice these counterattacks without drama, you will feel something shift inside. You will stop fantasizing about perfectly worded speeches that finally make them see how they hurt you. You will stop replaying scenarios in your head where you destroy them with comebacks. Instead, you will feel a steady satisfaction in doing something they never expected, living well without them controlling your strings. Your revenge is not their suffering. Your revenge is your freedom. However, there is one more layer you cannot ignore. It is not enough to defend yourself one by one against individual manipulators. You need a reputation that protects you before situations even start. In Machiavelli's world, a prince's name alone could deter enemies or invite attacks. In your world, your reputation acts as a silent shield. When people know you as someone who is clear, fair, and unplayable, many predators will not even bother trying. In the next part, you will build that long-term reputation armor, how you become known as the man who cannot be guilted into bad deals, who does not speak recklessly, who does not betray himself for short-term comfort. You will see how to shape your image in a way that attracts loyalty, repels predators, and lets you move through life with less constant defense and more forward momentum. Up to this point, most of your defenses have been tactical. You have tightened your information, slowed your tempo, recalibrated your scarcity, learned to read predators, and learned to counterattack without drama. These are the moves you make in specific situations. But there is a higher level of power that Machiavelli understood very well, the level where your name itself is a shield. In his world, the mere reputation of a prince could deter attacks. Nobody wanted to be the fool who challenged the ruler, known for swift, decisive responses. He wrote that it is not titles that honor men, but men that honor titles. Translated into your life, that means your job title, your relationship label, or your social status matter less than your personal reputation. When people hear your name, do they think easy to guilt, easy to rush, easy to use, or do they think fair, strong, and not someone you play games with? Number 18, public boundaries, private compassion. Many men confuse kindness with public softness. They believe that in order to be a good person, they must be endlessly accommodating in full view of everyone. They never say no, never confront, never enforce limits, because they do not want to look harsh. Manipulators see this and move in. The powerful reversal is to make your boundaries publicly consistent and your compassion mostly private. Public boundaries mean that over time, people in your workplace, family, and social circles learn the same clear pattern from you. You do not tolerate disrespectful language. You do not accept being spoken over. You do not engage with gossip. You do not work for free under the banner of family. You do not stay in conversations where people are shouting. This is not a one-time declaration. It is a steady pattern. When someone crosses a line, your reaction is predictable, calm, firm, and aligned with what you have done before. Private compassion means you still understand that people are flawed. You may choose to forgive quietly. You may choose to help someone who has genuinely shown remorse and changed. You might even make occasional exceptions, but you do it consciously, without breaking your general policy. You do not announce these decisions as if you are a saint. You do not train others to expect them. Machiavelli knew that a ruler sometimes needed to be perceived as strict in public while making nuanced judgments in private. Your reputation armor works the same way. The world sees your standard. The people closest to you may occasionally see your mercy. The key is that mercy never erases the standard. Number 19, the iron pattern. A man's reputation is not built on what he intends, but on what he repeatedly does. Manipulators thrive when your behavior is inconsistent. One day you enforce a boundary, the next day you allow it because you are tired. One week you are disciplined with your time, the next week you let someone drag you everywhere. This inconsistency tells predators that if they push at the right time, they might still get what they want. The iron pattern is your decision to become extremely boring in the best possible way. The iron pattern means that your core responses to certain behaviors are so consistent that people start predicting them ahead of time. Everyone around you knows that you do not lend money lightly. They know you do not respond well to last-minute pressure. They know you do not stay in conversations where you are insulted. They know you do not cancel your priorities to rescue people from chaos they created. Because these responses are stable, manipulators lose interest. There is nothing to negotiate. There is no angle. This is exactly why Machiavelli emphasized that a prince is despised when he is considered fickle, frivolous, effeminate, cowardly, irresolute. The modern version of fickle and irresolute is a man whose boundaries change depending on his mood or the attractiveness of the person in front of him. Your iron pattern kills that. It gives you a reputation for being dependable. Not in the sense of always available, but in the sense of always acting according to principle. Number 20, silence as signature. Most people today are loud. They react quickly, post their every thought, argue in public threads, talk endlessly about their plans, their goals, their next big move. Manipulators love noise. Every extra word is a potential weapon. Every impulsive rant is a future screenshot. Every careless confession in a group chat is potential leverage. A powerful man chooses something else. His silence in certain areas becomes part of his reputation. Silence as signature does not mean you become mysterious for its own sake. It means there are topics you simply do not feed with public commentary. You do not publicly trash ex-partners, ex-bosses, or ex-friends, no matter how badly they behaved. You do not vent your deepest frustrations in spaces that do not deserve your rawness. You do not argue on the internet with strangers. You do not make threats you cannot or will not carry out. Over time, people learn that your name is not attached to chaotic outbursts or messy drama. There is enormous strategic value here. Machiavelli observed that wise men say it is well to seem merciful, faithful, humane, religious, upright, and to be so. But you must have a mind so disposed that when it is necessary not to be so, you can change to the opposite. Silence gives you that flexibility. When you have not loudly declared that you will always and forever tolerate certain things, you can adjust your stance as reality requires without looking like a hypocrite. When you have not blasted your personal life into the open, others cannot easily weaponize it. Your discretion becomes a kind of armor. Silence, as signature, also changes how others speak around you. When people know that you are not loose with your tongue, they are more careful with theirs. They are less comfortable trying to trap you in gossip because you do not take the bait. They are less likely to say reckless things in your presence because your calm, observant energy makes them aware of themselves. This alone filters out a certain type of manipulative personality, the kind that thrives only in loud, careless environments. Reputation armor is not just about avoiding predators. It is about attracting allies. In any environment, people are scanning for someone solid, someone whose mood and morals do not swing wildly, someone whose no means something and whose yes is backed by action. When your reputation sends that signal, you draw in a different level of relationship. High-quality people are not looking for a savior. They are looking for stability. You become that. But reputation also has a long memory. Some of the people in your life have known an older version of you. The man who over-explained, over-gave, overreacted, and overstayed in bad situations. As you harden your defenses and refine your pattern, there will be friction. Some will insist on treating you like the old version. They will poke, test, and accuse. That is where your armor must be emotionally thick. You are not doing this for their approval. You are doing this to stop betraying yourself. Machiavelli knew that reforming a state was hardest when people remembered the old disorder. He wrote that there is nothing more difficult to take in hand, more perilous to conduct, or more uncertain in its success than to take the lead in the introduction of a new order of things. You are implementing a new order in your personal kingdom. It will feel uncertain at first, but with each consistent action, the new order solidifies and the old story dies. At this point, count what you have built. Information control, tempo sovereignty, scarcity and presence defenses, predator detection, counterattacks without drama, reputation armor. That is 20 defenses, each one making you more unplayable than the last. You are already far from the man who walked into this journey. But there is one more layer that determines whether all of this becomes a rigid mask or a deep transformation. The final defense is internal. It has nothing to do with what you say to others and everything to do with what you believe about yourself. Because if, underneath all of this, you still see yourself as weak, guilty, and unworthy, you will eventually sabotage your own power. Manipulators will find a way back in through your secret self-hatred. To become truly unexploitable, your inner court has to change. The judge inside your head must stop ruling in favor of anyone who mistreats you. In the final part, you will build the 21st defense, the internal tribunal that makes self-respect non-negotiable. You will see how to stop arguing with reality, how to forgive yourself without making excuses, and how to anchor a new identity as a man who cannot be played because he refuses to play against himself. There is one place where every manipulator needs you to be weak. It is not in your calendar, your phone, your bank account, or your social circle. It is in the private courtroom inside your own head. That is where you secretly judge yourself. That is where you secretly decide whose pain matters more. That is where you either enforce your own boundaries or quietly overrule them just this once. If that inner court is corrupt, everything else eventually collapses. You can control your information, your tempo, your presence, your reputation. But if deep down you still believe other people's comfort is more important than your peace, you will keep opening the gate again. You will keep letting manipulators appeal their case until you cave. To become truly unexploitable, you must rebuild that court. Number 21. The inner tribunal of self-respect. The inner tribunal is the part of you that decides, finally and permanently, that you are not the villain for protecting your own life. Right now, in many moments, the verdict goes the other way. You set a boundary and immediately feel guilty. You say no and immediately feel like you have done something wrong. You walk away from a toxic situation and immediately start wondering if you were too harsh. Without realizing it, you appoint your fear, your loneliness, and your shame as judges over your choices. They will always rule against you. Machiavelli understood that a ruler who fears the wrong things will make the wrong decisions. He wrote that he who becomes master of a city accustomed to freedom and does not destroy it may expect to be destroyed by it. Applied to you, there is a part of your psychology that is accustomed to freedom in the worst way. It is used to roaming around, sabotaging you with guilt and self-doubt every time you step into power. If you do not bring that part under order, it will destroy your defenses from the inside. The inner tribunal begins with one simple law. You stop putting your own needs on trial every time someone else is upset. You can care about people without surrendering the right to protect yourself. When a manipulator is unhappy because you enforced a boundary, that discomfort is not evidence that you did something immoral. It is evidence that their old control is dying. Your inner tribunal recognizes the difference. To build this tribunal, you start by rewriting the charges you keep bringing against yourself. For years, you have probably labeled yourself selfish for wanting rest, ungrateful for wanting more, too sensitive for reacting to disrespect, too demanding for expecting reciprocity. Ask yourself honestly, who benefited from those verdicts? Who got more access, more time, more energy, more leverage every time you decided you were the problem? It was never the strongest, most solid people in your life. It was the ones who needed you to stay. Small Machiavelli said that a man who wishes to profess goodness at all, times will come to ruin among so many who are not. Good, you have been professing goodness inside. Your own skull in the wrong way. You have equated goodness with self-erasure. The new tribunal breaks that connection. It declares that goodness includes protecting your focus, your purpose, your emotional stability, and your future. It declares that you are not mean for no longer being endlessly usable. Practically, this means you start reviewing your own decisions differently. Instead of asking, "Did everyone stay happy with me?" you ask, "Did I act with clarity, honesty, and respect for myself and others?" If the answer is yes, then other people's short-term discomfort is not a reason to reverse your decision. You can empathize without surrendering. You can feel compassion without reopening the gate you just closed. There is another function of the inner tribunal, dealing with your own mistakes. You are not innocent. You have lied, overreacted, avoided hard conversations, stayed too long, ignored red flags, and participated in dynamics that hurt you. Manipulators love to weaponize this. They will remind you of every flaw, every failure, every imperfection, to prove you have no right to change the rules now. You used to be fine with this. You are not perfect either. So now you think you are better than everyone. The corrupted part of your mind agrees with them. It says, "Who am I to demand better when I have messed up too?" So you fold. You accept misery as punishment. You stay in situations where you cannot grow because you feel you do not deserve anything else. This is where your inner tribunal must become both ruthless and merciful. Ruthless with lies, merciful with truth. Ruthless with lies means you stop letting shame exaggerate your failures into a life sentence. Yes, you have tolerated too much. Yes, you have manipulated at times. Yes, you have run from your own responsibility. That makes you human, not doomed. Mercy with truth means you tell yourself, "I did wrong there. I see it, I am changing it." The past does not obligate me to accept abuse, disrespect, or exploitation now. You do not let your history be used as a chain. Machiavelli understood that a wise ruler learns from his errors without becoming paralyzed by them. He wrote that all courses of action are risky, so prudence is not in avoiding danger, but in calculating risk and acting decisively. Your decisive act now is to stop using your past weakness as a justification for present self-betrayal. A man who has been naive and learns is not a hypocrite for becoming strong. He is doing exactly what life demanded. As this inner tribunal solidifies, something profound happens. Your defenses stop feeling like techniques and start feeling like identity. You are no longer trying to be less available. You are a man whose time is structured. You are no longer remembering to slow down your responses. You are a man who moves on his own clock. You are no longer practicing boundaries. You are a man whose standard is ingrained. Power is no longer a posture. It is your default. Look back at what you have built. You have learned to close the information gate so manipulators cannot reach your pressure points. You have taken control of tempo so urgency and silence can no longer whip your emotions around. You have reshaped scarcity so you are no longer starving for specific people or opportunities. You have trained your eyes to read predatory tells instead of believing every flattering story. You have mastered counterattacks that work through consequences, not chaos. You have crafted reputation armor that warns weak players away before they even try. And now you are establishing an inner tribunal that refuses to sacrifice you on the altar of other people's comfort. This is what it means to move from vulnerable and reactive to strategically unexploitable. Machiavelli said that fortune is the arbiter of one half of our actions, but she still leaves us to direct the other half. You cannot control every betrayal, every lie, every sudden reversal life will throw at you, but you can absolutely control whether you are an easy piece on someone else's board or a man who moves with his own design. Fortune may decide who walks into your life. Your defenses decide who stays. There will be tests. The moment you start living this framework, old patterns will try to pull you back. Someone you care about will accuse you of arrogance when you set a boundary. An attractive opportunity will appear contingent on you betraying your standards. An old manipulator will return, promising they have changed, pushing every nostalgia button they can find. Your old self would fold. Your new self has a different response. You listen, you observe, you measure their actions over time, and you keep your gate under your control. You will also notice an internal pull to soften your edges when you feel lonely, tired, or scared. That is when the inner tribunal is most crucial. In those moments, you will be tempted to call weakness kindness again. You will want to re-enter old dynamics just to feel familiar. This is where your discipline must become almost royal. You remind yourself, I am not rejecting connection. I am rejecting being used. You tolerate temporary discomfort in exchange for permanent elevation. The real reward of all of this is not that no one ever tries to manipulate you again. They will. The world will not become pure because you have. The real reward is that you stop being at war with yourself. Your outer behavior and inner verdict finally match. When you say no, you stand behind it. When you walk away, you do not second-guess yourself into crawling back. When you choose yourself, you do not hold a trial afterward to decide whether you were allowed to. In that alignment, you will experience a feeling that is rare in men today: quiet power. Not the loud performance of confidence, not the fragile ego that needs everyone to know he is alpha. Genuine, unadvertised power. The kind that you feel when you look at your own life and realize you are no longer running from your reflection. The kind that lets you move through business, dating, and friendships without constant fear of being played, because you know you will not participate in your own exploitation. Machiavelli, if he was speaking to you now, would not tell you to trust no one and live in paranoia. He would tell you to know human nature, trust slowly, verify relentlessly, and never allow your survival to depend on anyone who has shown contempt for your dignity. He would tell you that fortune may favor the bold, but she destroys the blind. You are no longer blind. From this point forward, every interaction is a chance to practice. You do not need to announce your new framework. You simply live it. You answer more slowly. You disclose more selectively. You enforce consequences calmly. You step back when patterns show themselves. You protect your name. And when the old guilt rises up, you let your inner tribunal speak. I am not here to be used. I'm not here to be manipulated. I'm not here to be played. You are here to build, to lead your own life, to choose power before pleasure, reality before fantasy, strategy before impulse. The 21 hidden defenses you have learned are not tricks. They are, together, a new constitution for your inner state. A constitution that says, in every article and every clause, that your life is not a playground for other people's unhealed wounds. Hold that line. Live this system, and remember what you declared earlier, because it is now the core of who you are becoming. You cannot be played, because you study power before pleasure.